Alright guys, in today's class we are going to start quadratic inequalities. So before moving on to the questions part, first we need to understand the concept कि quadratic inequalities में किस तरह answer दिया जाता है, and for that we need to have a good understanding on the graphs. See, first example that I'm using here is y is equal to x square minus x minus 2. This is the quadratic equation here. So let's just build up a concept first, and then we are going to see how the question is asked in the exams and how does it work. First thing first, they have said, let's say, okay, what is the value of x when y is equal to 0? Now this over here is a graph of x square minus x minus 2. The graph of x square minus x minus 2. The graph of x square minus x minus 2, right? So they're asking you what is the value of x when y is equal to 0. So you're going to move towards your graph here. You know this, that in graph y is equal to 0 is on the x-axis. So we are going to look towards the graph here, the quadratic graph here, where it is going to intersect at the x-axis, because at x-axis the y value is 0. So what is the value of x when y is equal to 0? So the value of x when y equal to 0 is 2 and it is minus 1. So you can see they're asking you what is the value of x when y equal to 0? The value of x is 2 and it is minus 1. There are two values. But what if they ask you what is the value of x when y is greater than 0? So we are going to look towards the graph. This is our graph. Now this portion of the graph is above x-axis where y is greater than 0. This portion of the graph is above x-axis where y is greater than 0. As you can see, all the values of y over here is going to be positive, which are greater than 0. Over here it is going to be 0.1, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, 1, 1.2. So you can see in both of these shaded portion, the y value is greater than 0. So what is the value of x? So I'm going to say the value of x over here is greater than 2 and less than minus 1. Now you have observed that we need to know the x value when it is intersecting the x-axis. It means we need to know the value of x when y is equal to 0. And with that reference, we are going to answer that when x is greater than 2, at these values, the value of y is greater than 0. When x is less than minus 1, so at these values, the value of y is greater than 0. So we can say that at x is greater than 2, and x is less than minus 1, we have the graph y greater than 0. We have the graph y greater than 0. And now we can also combine this inequality here. We can also write it like this: when x is greater than 2 and x is less than minus 1. We can also write this inequality like this. So we can write it like this: x is greater than 2 and x is less than minus 1. The graph is y, the graph has y greater than 0. Similarly, if they ask you what is the value of x when y is less than 0, so we are going to see which portion of the graph over here where y is less than 0. So you must have observed that this portion of the graph is the portion where y is less than 0. All the values over here of the graph is less than 0. You can see at this point the value of y, at this point the value of y, at this point the value of y is minus 1. The value of y is minus 2 here. The value of y is minus 2 here. So you can see in this whole portion the value of y is less than 0. So what are the values of x here? The value of x over here is less than 2. See? And for that also we need to have the value of x when y equal to 0. So we got the value of x 2 here and we got the value of x equal to minus 1 here. So at what values of y At what values of x y is less than 0? At x is less than 2, at x is less than 2, and x is greater than minus 1, x is less than 2, x is greater than minus 1, we have the y values over here less than 0. So we can say x is less than 2 like this, x is less than 2, x is greater than minus 1. At these values, y is less than 0. So now you have observed the graph that when it says what is the y is greater than 0, what is the value of x when y is greater than 0? The value of x is greater than 2 here, greater than the larger value. The value of x is less than minus 1 here, less than the negative value, less than the lesser value. And when it say what is the value of x when y is less than 0, so we can say x is less than 2. It means the value of x is lesser than the greater than value, the larger value. And x is greater than minus 1, which means x is greater than the lesser value. So at these values, the value of y is less than 0. So this is the graphical thing that you need to understand before moving on to the algebraic part of this quadratic inequality. Now, let's move on the quadratic algebraic part of this inequalities, how they usually do ask this question in their exams or in books. Okay, so let's see how they usually ask this question algebraically. See, they don't usually ask this that what is the value of x when y equal to 0. They ask like this: solve the equation. Which equation? X square minus x minus 2 is equal to 0. See, when they ask like this, x square minus x minus 2 equal to 0. So if you relate it with the algebraic, with the graphical part, they have put this value x square minus x minus 2 over here, the value of y here. So you can see they are asking you to solve this equation to find out the value of x when y is equal to 0. When y is equal to 0. If you put this x square minus x minus 2, the value of y from the quadratic equation, in this equation y equal to 0, you will get this equation x square minus x minus 2 equal to 0. So they don't usually write like this. वो इस तरह नहीं लिखते कि y equal to x square minus x minus 2 को यहाँ पर लिख दो और फिर बताओ values. They directly write this equation x square minus x minus 2 equal to 0. And they ask you to solve this equation. So what you guys usually do, आप इसकी मिडल टर्म ब्रेक करते हैं, quadratic formula लगाते हैं, x square minus 3x, sorry, it is going to be minus 2x plus x minus 2 equal to 0. You are going to take the common x minus 2, 1 common x minus 2 equal to 0. You're going to have two brackets x minus 2 x plus 1 equal to 0. So you're going to have two values of x, 2 and minus 1. Now if you can see, this 2 and minus 1 are the values of x when y is equal to 0. So this over here, the values over here basically are the values when y equal to 0. These are the x-intercepts. Now how they ask this quadratic inequality here. Now this is the portion where they ask you for the quadratic inequality, solve this equation. Solve the quadratic inequality. How they are going to ask you in exam? They are going to ask x square minus x minus 2 less than 0. They are going to ask this question directly. They won't ask you what is y equal to 0. What is the value of x when y equal to 0? They are not going to ask you like this. They are going to ask you the question like this. So what you need to understand, they are basically asking you what is the value of x when y is less than 0. अगर वो इस तरह क्वेश्चन दें, so you need to think of it, what is the value of x when y is less than 0. And over here if you can observe कि मैंने कुछ भी नहीं करा है, मैंने यहाँ से y की वैल्यू उठाई और I've put it over here. And I got this equation here, x square minus x minus 2 is less than 0. तो यही काम आपको डायरेक्टली पूछेंगे. What you need to do, you're going to just for a short time, you're going to equate it with 0 and get the x-intercept like I'm doing right now. I'm just copying down the left portion of this question. This over here. I got the value of x over here, but this is not my answer. This is not my answer. What is my answer? When y is less than 0, when it is less than 0, I'm going to write x is lesser than greater than value, the larger value, and x is greater than the smaller value. All right. See, if you can observe this, I've just changed the position of this y is less than 0 and y greater than 0. So now if you can just observe this, at y less than 0, what was the x values? X is less than 2 and greater than minus 1 according to the graph as well. These are the values of y. Y is less than 0 when x is less than 2 and greater than minus 1, and algebraically we got the same values as well. X is less than larger value, x is greater than smaller value. Now if they ask you what is the value, now if they ask you like this, solve. Now what we need to solve? We need to solve x square minus x minus 2 is greater than 0. So they are going to ask you directly for this. So if they are asking you directly this question, so what they are meant over here, they are meant that what is the value of x when y is less than 0, greater than 0? What is the value of x when y is greater than 0? So this, if you can just observe, I've just put this value x square minus x minus 2 over here, the value of y here, and I got y is greater than 0, I got x square minus x minus 2 is greater than 0. So they are not going to ask you, just put this value over here. No, they are not going to ask like this. They are going to ask you this question, x square minus x minus 2 is greater than 0. So what they meant, what you have to think at that moment, you have to think they are asking you for the value of x when y is greater than 0. So this is the hint that you need to work on. So I'm going to, for a short time, what I'm going to do, I'm going to write it the same inequality, quadratic inequality equal to 0. And I'm going to solve this equation as it is to find out the x-intercept, because this is the main thing that we need to do. We are going to find out the x-intercept. We are going to break the middle term, x square minus x plus x minus 2 equal to 0. I got x common, x minus 2, I got 1 common, I got x minus 2 equal to 0. I got x minus 2, x plus 1 equal to 0. I got the value of x, 2 and minus 1. But this is not my answer. I need to know what is the value of x when y is greater than 0. This is what they have asked you, when y is greater than 0. So how I'm going to write the answer? I'm going to write the answer, x is greater than the larger value, x is lesser than the smaller value. Right? So you're going to read it like this. X is greater than the larger value, x is greater than 2, and x is less than minus 1. Alright? You can also write it separately. It doesn't matter that you write it combined in a combined form. You can also write it separately. Like, you can write it like this. If that's more feasible for you, you can also write it like this. X is less than 2 and x is less than minus 1. Similarly, over here as well, if you want to write it, you can also write x is less than 2, x is greater than minus 1. Alright? So let's have a few more questions related to this. Okay, so we have a question, y equal to x square plus x minus 20. Now I'm going to ask this question in the same way that the examiner usually asks. In a quadratic inequality, they are going to ask you, solve x square minus x minus 20 equal to 0. So now you know this. When it is equal to 0, it means they are asking you for the value of x when y is equal to 0. When y is equal to 0. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to break the middle term, 5x minus 4x. I'm going to break the plus x into 5x minus 4x equal to 0. You can use the quadratic formula as well. You got x common, x plus 5. You got minus 4 common. It becomes x plus 5 equal to 0. So x plus 5, x minus 4 are the two brackets. I got the value of x is minus 4, minus 5 and 4. You can use this a short sketch of the graph. You can make a short sketch of the graph. You know this, the value of x and the value of y. See, this is the graph. This is the quadratic graph here. Let's just make it with a different color. With the green. Okay. So we have this x value minus 4 and minus 5. So this is 5, this is minus 4. So you have to think, what is the value of x when y equal to 0? That's totally fine. This is the final answer. The value of x equal to minus 4, x equal to 4 and x equal to minus 5 when y is equal to 0. But what if they ask you, solve the quadratic inequality, and they ask you what is x square minus x minus 20 is less than 0. If they ask you find the range of values of x when x square plus x minus 20 equals 0, they both are same thing. When find the range of values of x, when they ask you find the range of values of x, it means they must have given you the inequality, and that's the equality over here. That is the inequality over here. So what is the inequality over here? They're telling you y is less than 0. What is the value of x and y is less than 0? So y is less than 0 is at what x values? You can see these are the x values, these are the y values where y is negative. Over here the y is negative. So what are the x values here? X is less than 5 and x is greater than minus 4. So you can write down like this: x is less than 5 and x is greater than minus 4. You can write down the answer like this. But what if they ask you solve x square plus x minus 20 greater than 0? It means they are asking you, or if they ask you what is the range of values of x when y is greater than 0, when x square plus x minus 20 is greater than 0. So it means they are asking you the value of x and y is greater than 0. So at what values y is greater than 0? Sir, this is the portion where y is greater than 0. This is the portion y is greater than 0. So at what values of x? Sir, x is greater than 5, x is less than minus 4. At these values, y is greater than 0. So I'm going to write x is greater than 5, x is less than minus 4. This is the answer for the inequality. These are the range of values of x when y is greater than 0. Let's have one more question. It says this is the quadratic equation y equal to x square minus 2x minus 15. They're not going to ask you a question like this for the quadratic equation or inequality. For the equality, they are going to ask x square minus 2x minus 15 is equal to 0. So this is the quadratic equality. How are you going to solve it? Just find out the value of x. I'm going to break the middle term. It becomes x minus 5 so I got two values, 5 and minus 3. So what are these values stands for? Sir, on graph, this is the quadratic graph. On graph, you have this values. Right? You have this values 5 and minus 3. So these values stands for what is it? These are the x values where y is equal to 0. Right? So this is fine. But when they ask you x square minus 2x minus 15 is less than equals to 0. Let's make it less than equal to 0. Now this is the quadratic inequality. So what does that mean? X square minus 2x minus 15 less than equal to 0. What do they mean? They are basically ask you find the range of values of x when y is less than 0. When y is less than equal to 0. This means when y is less than equal to 0. What is the value of x? So I'm going to find out the same x values. I'm going to put it, for a time being, I'm going to put this equation equal to 0 and I will get the answer x equal to 5 and minus 3. I'm going to get the same answer. But this is not the values that we have to answer. This is not the answer that we have to give. This is just a x-intercept that we are finding out. This is just these values, this point of interest that we are finding out. Now what is the value of y? What is the value of x and y is less than equal to 0? y is less than equal to 0 is at this point. This is the point where y is less than equal to 0. So what are the x values? Sir, x values is less than 5 and greater than minus 3. So I'm going to write less than 5 and greater than minus 3, the value of x less than the larger value, greater than the less value. And since it is y is less than equal to 0, less than equal to 0, because they are interesting at the y values, the x values, when y is equal to 0 as well. So I'm going to put the value of x is less than equal to 5 and x is greater than equals to minus 3. Now both of these are my answer for this question. But when they say x square minus 2x minus 15 is greater than equal to 0, it means they're asking you for the x values when y is greater than equals to 0. So you're going to repeat the same step. Everything is going to be same. The value of x is going to be minus 5 and minus 3. We are going to find the point of interest, the x-intercept, where y is equal to 0. So I got the value of x, which is 5 and minus 3. Now we are going to judge. At what x values y is greater than 0. So this is the portion where y is greater than 0. This is the portion where y is greater than 0. So at what x values? X is greater than 5, x is less than minus 3. X is greater than 5, x is less than minus 3. X is greater than larger value, x is less than smaller value. Now I'm going to put x is greater than equal to 5, x is less than equal to minus 3. Why we are putting less than equals to and greater than equals to? Because over here they are also interested on the y values which is equal to 0. So at y equal to 0, x is 5. At y equal to 0, x is minus 3. And they are also asking what is the value of x when y is greater than 0. So for x is greater than 5 and x is less than minus 3, y is greater than 0. So this over here is my complete answer for this question. Now this is the quadratic inequalities introduction and the question that I have done for you people to understand the concept of quadratic inequality. So this is quadratic equality, quadratic inequality, quadratic inequalities, quadratic inequalities, quadratic equality. I've just compared with the quadratic inequality here. And then we have this first question where I have drawn the graph as well, the exact graph to tell you what is the quadratic inequality stands for here. So thank you so much. Do like, subscribe and share my channel. Thank you so much.